Hello everyone and welcome back to another Weekly Poker Showdown brought to you by PartyPoker. I am your host, Jaime Staples, and this week we got a chance to talk with Jonathan Little, one of the most prolific poker creators in our game in entirety. I mean, the guy has probably made more training videos than anyone on the planet, probably closely rivaling Phil Galfond there. It's got to be close. So, incredible opportunity to speak with him. He speaks with a lot of newer poker players or poker players improving on their journey to become better, and a guy that's been a big name in the game for a long time. So great to talk with him. But before we get to that conversation, let's touch on some of the news from the online poker world over the past weekend. This past Sunday, it was a Swedish 1-2 in the PokerStars $2,000 high roller on Sunday. After striking a two-way deal, the top honors worth almost $36,000 went to Johannes Kosar. Greenstone 25 is their screen name, defeated fellow countryman, also known as pro Simon C. Darwin Matson, who banked $31,768. Johannes Kosar, a name we've seen a lot in these wrap-ups, so seems to be doing really well in the high roller scenes. Congrats to Johannes. Team Party Poker's Anatoly Filatov placed 5th place in the event for $13,160, while popular player Dominic Nietzsche finished 3rd place for $22,772. Still at PokerStars, Brazilians dominated the latest Sunday Million edition. Gabriel G. Tavares took down the event for $110,883, while another Brazilian, Gulheim Pelquito Franco, finished 3rd place for $58,391. Apologies on the pronunciation there. The Party Poker big game once again hit its guarantee as 115 entrants built a prize pool worth $536,940. I'd like to say I actually got my second chance ever at playing this tournament on Sunday. It was such a fun time. To play a $5,000 online tournament, it's just a different feeling. Now, I did fall short of the money, unfortunately, but I look forward to getting another shot in the future and playing again. I think I'm donating to this field a little bit, but that's okay. The event was won by Jazoint for $131,000 over 2nd place Baba Di Baba. Meanwhile, A. Juxto was this week's Party Poker Million champion, taking home $153,000 top prize. Let's get on to some of the industry news from the past week. This week, there's been a lot of discussion about the coronavirus. Poker pros have been wagering on whether the coronavirus outbreak will cancel the World Series of Poker in Las Vegas or not. Doug Polk, Mike McDonald, Dan O'Brien are among those willing to bet that the Summer Series will be canceled this year. And I know Bill Perkins has been very active on this issue. The virus was responsible for the closing of some casinos in Macau last month. Last week, Polk tweeted calling for a discussion on the viability of the event being hosted amid the outbreak. Doug went to seek wagers from potential punters at odds of 20-1 that all WSOP events in Las Vegas this year will be canceled. Mike McDonald, slightly more confident on the cancellations, and reacted seeking lower odds of 12-1. The official World Series of Poker account responded to the murmurs, stating, "We are monitoring COVID-19 developments and have no plans to cancel the WSOP." So very interesting here. I think obviously this is something that will continue to develop week after week, and fingers crossed things end up on the better side as opposed to the worst side of the projections. I asked Jonathan Little about this in our conversation. It'll be interesting to hear what he said, but I will sort of piggyback off his sentiment, which is I really have no idea what's going to happen. I like that the poker world is being proactive and sort of thinking on it, but I also understand that I'm probably not in the best position to project, my guesses as to what's going to be happening. So fingers crossed that the world gets healthier and we're able to keep this under control, and live poker will continue as planned this summer. On the live poker front, we have Party Poker hosting a very high stakes event this week in Sochi. Million Super High Roller Series in Russia gets underway this week, running up until March 15th. The event is expected to draw a stellar cast from the high-stakes poker fraternity, including the likes of Paul Foy, Richard Young, Kerry Katz, Rob Young, Jason Kuhn, and Mikita Badzikowski. Mikita, if I said your name wrong, I apologize. Headline the festival will be the largest buy-in event in Russian poker history. Kicking off on Friday, March 13th, the $250,000 buy-in is officially the most expensive poker event ever organized in Russia. Stream will be available on Party Poker Twitch, YouTube, Facebook, and Party Poker website in both English and Russian. In Party Poker news, we have ramped up the cash game leaderboard prizes to $1 million throughout March, which is a huge amount of money in a leaderboard. So now paying out over $250,000 every single week. There's 16 leaderboards now running in a range of buy-ins to accommodate all bankrolls, so you don't just have to be a high roller to compete here. Both No Limit and Pot Limit Omaha fans are catered for equally in the promotion. Top prizes on offer per leaderboard have also been doubled to $10,000. $500,000 also being invested into the Omaha leaderboards for the month of March. There's an additional $35,000 to be won at the cash game tables every week through Party Poker's daily cash boom promo, meaning unrivaled value for cash game players of all levels. And I don't think that's just a read on what's going on. I challenge you to find better value for cash games out there. I don't think you're going to do it. Also, the dates have been confirmed for the next Power Fest, which is something that I'm very interested in, streaming tournaments on Twitch. The flagship series will return March 15th to 29th. There's over $20 million in guaranteed prize money spread across 488 separate tournaments. Buy-ins range from 55 cents all the way up to $25,550 to give all players a shot at championship prize money. 4 separate main events will crown the series on the final day, and progressive knockout events once again feature prominently alongside other popular formats such as 6-max, mix-max, 6-4, and freeze-out. So very excited about PowerFest. I know I'll be streaming it as well as a bunch of my colleagues on Twitch, and I look forward to seeing you all out there on the feld. And the last Party Poker update I want to give you is a brand new software release that just came out as of today, and I'm recording this on Thursday afternoon, by the way. So the first thing you're going to notice is that Diamonds and Rabbit Hunt are now available on desktop as well as mobile. If you've seen the mobile app before, you're probably familiar with this. The diamond currency that appears in the bottom right corner of the table allows you to pay for a rabbit hunt to see what cards would have come on the turn in the river using this in-game currency. And on the mobile app, you can throw things at your opponents, like you could throw a champagne bottle if you want to wish them congrats, or throw a donkey at them if you want to maybe criticize one of their plays. So we've seen the diamonds incorporated into the desktop client as well. So this is going to start out on spins on the desktop client, but it will be rolling out to other areas in the future. The second update for desktop is Percentage Showdown for No Limit Hold'em. So if you're all in and there's 2 players and it is just the cards to come, you're going to be able to see a percentage likelihood of your chance to win. I know this has been a big request, has been planned for a long time, so happy to announce that finally you will be able to see your percentage likelihood of winning the pot, which always has helped me in my progress of becoming a better poker player. Because sometimes I think I'm doing better than I am. I'm like, oh, okay, I thought I had like 45%. I really have 35%. I should look at that spot maybe a little bit. So I'm looking forward to this feature. All-in Percentage Showdown for No Limit Hold'em. So now that we're through the live poker news, let's get into this conversation with Jonathan Little, a 2-time World Poker Tour champion, a 14-time poker author, one of the guys that speaks to beginning and newer poker players more than perhaps anyone else in the industry. So I think it was a great opportunity to speak with Jonathan. I think you guys will love to hear what he has to say. Without further ado, Jonathan Little. Joining me on the podcast today, I have a 14-time poker book author, 2-time WPT champion, legend of the game, Jonathan Little. Jonathan, thanks for joining me on the podcast.
Hello, thanks for having me. I've actually been spending all morning working on the finishing touches of book number 15. So now we're going to be a 15-time author coming this summer. So that's good.
Wow. So is there anyone more prolific in writing poker books? That's got to be the record, right? I don't think...
Probably that's the record. I don't know. There were some guys who've been doing it for 50 years who may have more. But even then, a lot of those are like little pamphlets. I'm certainly the most in the last few years.
I wanted to ask you, so because poker seems like such a huge topic. Well, it is a huge topic. There's like endless things to talk about, to how to get better at poker, how to live a poker life, strategy just on different streets. Like there's so many things to talk about that for me, writing that out, it seems like a very difficult task. It's like too mammoth to break down. So how did you go from looking at the game of poker and then start writing about it?
Well, so you have to break it down in various ways, right? So there's tournaments and there are cash games, right? There's No Limit Hold'em and there's other games. And the tournament books are probably the hardest to fully break down because in tournaments you have to know how to play all the stack sizes decently well. Whereas like in cash games, if you write a cash game book that's roughly 100 big blinds or more, you're going to be fine, right?
Right.
And I mean, something like 300 big blind poker does play a little bit different than 100 big blind poker, but it's not absurdly different. It's a little bit different, but not absurdly different. Whereas 20 big blind poker is very different than 100 big blind poker. So I do think tournaments are the most daunting task. So what I did for my first tournament book, it's about 10 years ago. I'm actually in the process of going through and updating it and refreshing it. That's gonna be book number 16. So basically I just outlined everything that I could think about pertaining to each scenario, like pre-flop, right? So when they fold to you, when there's a raise in front of you, when there's a limp in front of you, and you're raising it 3-bet, and then just write as much as you possibly can about each point. And so I did that for my first book, and it ended up being about 600 pages, which was a little bit too big, so they made me cut it in half into 2 books. But they've let me write big books recently, so I can easily put out a 500-page book, and I think we'll be able to do a 600-page one next year. We'll see.
So how do you get it? How do you even start getting published? Like, what is the relationship like of wanting to write a poker book and then like actually having people make a poker book for you?
So I actually wasn't looking to write a poker book, but I was making training videos for a site called Poker Strategy a long time ago. And one of their coaches there particularly liked my work, and he owned a poker publishing company called D&B Poker. They publish a lot of high-level chess books and poker books. And so they came to me and said, hey, would you want to write a book? And what I used to do with my private students is anytime they had a question about anything, I would just write an article about it. Right. And so I actually already had like 300 pages worth of just material. Like, how do you play when you get check raised on the river, right? You can write five pages about getting check raised on the river, right? So I already had a lot of the work already done. It was just a matter of organizing it and putting it into a logical flow. And that was it. But I mean, since then, I've self-published some of my own books. I have worked with a publisher. Now I'm heavily involved with the publisher. It's kind of my job to get them new, good content. And so, like, there was a book recently called Modern Poker Theory by Michael Acevedo that I did a ton of work on. There was one called Mastering Mixed Games by Dylan Lind that was very good. And we have a PLO book by Jay Nandez coming out later this year. So lots of good work I've been working on.
Yeah, those are some cutting edge names as well in their field.
Yeah.
So that's
so it's really just a matter of finding someone who thinks you can do good work, and also demonstrating that you can do good work, right? Like, they liked my poker training videos because they were well thought out and concise and clear, as opposed to someone who was, trying to sound way too smart or trying to berate bad players or whatever, right? Like, whatever people do wrong in their training videos. I guess I did the right things, and they wanted to give me a shot. And so I tell you, if you want to get a book published, just start writing it. Do it in your spare time. Don't do it with the idea of, I'm going to make a ton of money from this. Do this from the point of view of, I'm going to have a fun project, and I'm going to do it because I like doing it. And if you do things that you like doing and you do them well, and they're easily scalable, like selling a book, then maybe it takes off, maybe it doesn't. But either way, you did a project you wanted to do, and that'll make you happy.
That's a really cool perspective on that. Do you find that writing is like the easiest way that you communicate? Like, if you could choose video, audio, writing, or face-to-face in person, like which is your favorite, do you think, to do?
Well, I think I like mixing it up. So I know you think I've written a lot of books, but I've actually probably made more training videos than anyone else as well.
Right.
And I have no problem doing training videos. I like that. It's actually probably easier because when I'm writing books, it just kind of flows. I kind of just write like I speak, but I can speak quite fast, and I can't write quite as fast. I can't type quite as fast, right?
Right.
So I think I like making videos better. And they're different mediums, right? It's like, do you like playing online or do you like playing live? Well, you mix it up. If you play only online all the time, unless you're just like a super online grinder, you may get bored with it. If you play live all the time, you may get bored with it. So I'm a big fan of mixing it up.
The mix is great. I agree with you 100%. And before I got into Twitch has sort of really focused me on online and like play as much as I can there, because I think it's a great opportunity right now. But before that, I'd love to play online for a couple months. Like, I'd hit my first downswing and I'd be like, all right, I'm just gonna go splash around, like play 1 2 2 5 with my friends at the casino for a month, make a little bit of cash, and then come back and like get back into the real competition, So
well, yeah, it's fun. Mix it up. I mean, you're gonna find that in any aspect of life, if you do it all day, every day, it's gonna become a bit of a grind. And once things become a grind for 3 or 4 months, you're like, all right, I'm over this.
Right.
And you need to take breaks or mix it up. And book writing's kind of like streaming on Twitch, where do it because you like it when you're getting started, right? I mean, you're not necessarily doing it with the idea of, I'm going to do this and have the biggest channel in the world and get rich. You're doing it because I want someone to look at my play and tell me where I'm bad. Or I just want to hang out with people because I get bored when I'm sitting there grinding 10 hours a day, right?
Yeah.
And if you're good at it and you like it and you stick with it, maybe something will come from it. Maybe it won't, but you never know until you try.
Yes, I agree. I think, one, it's interesting. This is a question I get a lot on my Twitch stream, and I'm sure you get this question a lot as well. People will ask me, what should I play in poker? Should I play like cash games, or should I play spins, or should I play MTTs? Right? Like where am I going to make more money is like the question. And my answer is always, well, play what you enjoy, because the motivation is the most important aspect. So like you can thrive at all three of those formats. They're very different though. So try them, and then like let your internal motivation drive you towards which one you want to go down. So, but I'm curious, because you speak to maybe more beginning poker players than anyone out there. So what's your answer to that? How do you think people should choose which game to start playing?
Well, if you are a recreational poker player to begin with, it kind of implies that you have something else going on in life. Either you're in college, or you have a job, or you have a family, or who knows what, right? And some of those forms of poker just may not fit well with your life at all. Like multi-table tournaments often just do not fit well with some people's lives because they don't have a whole day to sit down and grind them, right?
Yeah.
So if you have 2 hours to devote to poker each day, but you can devote 2 hours to poker every single day, well, tournaments probably aren't for you, just right off the bat. Now, you can do things like play spins or sit and goes or something like that that kind of simulates tournaments or the tournament structure. But the idea of I'm going to become the best multi-table tournament grinder in the world is probably just not in the cards for you, right?
Right.
Whereas you should probably be playing cash games or something like spins where you can play for 2 hours and be done. So that's the first thing. Next, I tell people, for the most part, if they don't have a lot of experience already, they probably want to play games with the least amount of variance within reason, because in multi-table tournaments, you're just going to have big swings to your bankroll. And I don't know the structure of spins now, but you're probably going to have big swings to your bankroll in that too, because usually you lose, and then spike something. It has a similar graph to multi-table tournaments.
I think even more extreme spins. They're pretty.
Right. Yeah. Well, it depends on the structure, right? If they have it where it's like a $5 game, but you can win $1 million.
Yeah.
You're just like, you're never gonna spike $1 million. I hate to break it to you. Yeah. You might, but you're probably not. Whereas if it's like, a $200 buy-in when the big spike is like 50K, maybe you get that. I don't know what the structures are because I don't play them. So, but you're probably right. They just have way bigger swings. And I don't think recreational players like swings in the downward direction. And things like multi-table tournaments and spins will have severe swings in the downward direction sometimes, just based on standard variance. Whereas cash games typically don't have that quite as much. The problem, though, is that, especially online, cash games are really, really tough. And that means you have to start really small, and you have to be disciplined. And you have to ask, do I want to spend my time playing a game where I'm not really going to win a lot of money for a while, but I'm playing to get experience and to get good? But I mean, the question people ask, like you said, is where do I make the most money? Well, the answer is you're not going to make any money when you first start because you're not good yet, right? Yeah. And if you're not good, your goal is to just get good first. And you can get good at cash games really cheaply. I mean, they have like 1 cent, 2 cent games, where you're buying in for $2. And that's pretty nice. The fact that you can get experience at tiny stakes playing against people who are also trying to play well, right?
Right.
I wouldn't recommend playing for like play money because then people very often just don't care at all. Or at least relatively little.
Yeah, you could develop some bad habits of calling off the 100 big blind shoves, with ace tens and all that. Yeah, it doesn't necessarily correlate.
So I mean, deposit like $50 on Party Poker, play tiny stakes and get experience, and realize your goal is to get as good as you can as fast as you can, not win as much money as you can as fast as you can.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's perfect advice. When I first started playing, I did not take that advice. And a lot of people I talked to on this podcast also did not. Like when they started their journey, they got lucky to win a tournament. They got excited, and then they learned through failure later on in their career to like survive. So I'm curious as to what your intro into poker was like, and sort of the mistakes you made in the beginning and what you learned from there to be able to teach other people now.
It's going to sound bad, but I really didn't make a whole lot of mistakes in the beginning.
That's good.
I was pretty lucky with just falling into the right strategies. So I was posting on various internet forums, talking to decent players, and I read all the books I could back then about limit hold'em, because that was the main game back when I started back in 2003. And so I was playing on Party Poker, I put $50 online, and I played 25 cent, 50 cent limit, which was 100 big bets, which is not quite the bankroll you need, but you need like 300 bets, so I read. And so I would, as soon as I got up to like $300, I finally moved to 50 cent dollars. So I made a point to always keep 300 bets because I read in some book that's what you're supposed to do, and I did it. So I followed directions. So first things first, find people who have done it before you, see what frameworks they lay out, and probably listen to them within reason. So I did that. I grinded that $50 up into, I don't even know. I ended up playing 30-60 limit hold'em, always keeping 300 bets. And I guess that means I had what, $18,000? No, not 18, $9,000. No, $18,000. I can't do math. I'm very bad at math on the fly. So anyway, I eventually moved to sit and goes. And by the time I was 21, I had about $350,000 in party poker from that $50 deposit. And I never played out of my bankroll at all. And I always made a point to like keep 100 buy-ins for sit and goes or way more. I remember back when party poker first closed to Americans a long time ago, I think I had something like $280,000 in my account and I was playing $200 sit and goes. So like my goal was not to cash out money. My goal was to just run up my score, you know?
Right.
Because I was a kid. I had no expenses. I mean, I think the first time I cashed out $1,000, I had like 150K in the account. And like I didn't need the money because I had no expenses. And I was playing because I liked playing poker. And I viewed it like a video game. And the goal is to get a high score. And if you cash out your money, your score goes down.
Right.
So
absolutely.
I didn't want my score to go down. So I always kept a big bankroll. I suppose whenever I turned 21, I started playing live poker tournaments. And something I did wrong there is I did not have much experience playing live poker tournaments. So I presumed because I'm really good at sit and goes, I played a ton of sit and goes, more than almost anyone back in the day. I presume because I was good at those, I must be good at multi-table tournaments too. But those are actually pretty different strategies because in sit and goes, you need to get in the top 30% of the field, whereas in tournaments you need to get in the top 2% of the field. So that leads to a very different strategy. And I did not fully recognize that. And that led to me losing, I don't know, a decent amount of money. I think, 150K or something by the time I was 22. So, I had like 350, I lost down to 200, but I at some point realized I was bad and I searched out friends who were good and I learned from them. And then things turned around once I recognized and accepted that I'm playing a different game and that I don't actually know what I'm doing in this multi-table tournament game back then. So you have to always be open-minded and realize that you're probably not all that great. Like even today, I'm trying to study from new people. I have a training site, pokercoaching.com, and I'm now hiring coaches who I want to learn from. Right?
That was one of my questions. So I'm interested, who were those people back then when you you made the adjustment, which is the important thing, I think. Like a lot of people fail small, but then the people that are really successful, they turn it around quickly and they adjust to the right path. So I see that early in your career. So who were those people that influenced you? And then today, like who do you reach out to talk to today about poker?
So back then, one of my good friends was Dave Benefield, who's named Raptor on the internet, and he was good friends with Tom Dwan, and they both helped me a ton back in the day. Basically, they taught me not to play like a weak tight net, which actually is such a bad strategy in sit and goes because you got to get in the top 30% of the field, right? You win one all in and you're good to go.
Yeah.
But that's not how tournaments work. So they taught me a lot about playing some hands, right? So they were very beneficial. Shannon Shore was someone back in the day who we used to play a lot of sit and goes together, and he was a very strong player, and we still talk about poker a lot today. And now I try to talk with people that give me a tough time because a lot of players don't necessarily give me a tough time. I just realize maybe they're playing slightly better, closer to GTO than I am in the high stakes games. Whereas some people will like really maximally exploit you and cause you fits. So like recently at poker coaching, I brought on Jonathan Jaffe and Faraz Jaka. And both of them are insane. They'll just like randomly make absurd plays and I have no idea why they're doing it. Yet now they're making videos for me and my students telling us why to make these plays and when to make these plays. And that's very, very beneficial. So I'm trying to hire people who I know have like insanely high win rates because they both have huge win rates despite not even playing a ton. Maybe they've been lucky, but probably not.
Probably not. That's not the default assumption.
And so I try to learn from people who are crushing it despite not even playing a lot. And a lot of people may say, oh, they're just very talented. And while they may be talented, if you talk to them, everything is very, very clearly based on logic and understanding of the game, which they're good at explaining.
Absolutely.
So that's what I'm learning from today for the most part.
Right. The poker world has changed.
Book I've just finished writing is called Excelling at Tough No Limit Hold'em Games. And I am an advisor for a backing site called Pokar.
Right.
And they have a private training site for all of their backees. And, I look at the videos too. And I actually got involved with them because I realized they have a really, really good private training site that no one has access to, or basically no one has access to. And I wanted to learn from their coaches. So I watched tons of videos there, got way better at poker. And then I worked with the coaches there. I think I have about 10 coaches that I'm working with, including people like Ape Styles, John Van Fleet, a guy named Bert Stevens, Draft Ganger, Rob Tinian, who's won many, many big online tournaments, and
Couple million.
They have chapters in this book. So it's a fun book with content by a lot of the best players in the world. So I'm always trying to learn from the people who are better than me, and I don't have an ego problem, I don't think. Maybe if you say you don't have an ego problem, you must have an ego problem. But I don't think I have an ego problem, and I try to learn from people who are obviously doing things that I'm not doing that are allowing them to continue to see the high stakes all the time.
Right. That's a great approach. So poker's changed quite a bit over the last, I don't know, I'll say 5 or 6 years, but it kind of depends what groups you've been hanging in. Where when I first started playing, it was, your hand against their range, right? And that was all of the thinking in poker was, how does my hand do against their range? And now we've seen this different sort of level of poker arise at the highest levels, where we're thinking about our range versus their range and this game theory optimal sort of approach to poker. And it's kind of complicated to deploy it because, first of all, it's very difficult to understand. Like, it's a difficult concept. But then also, it's not always the right way to play. If you're playing, a bunch of people playing for fun on a Saturday night, you don't necessarily want to balance your range against the Saturday night guy just having a few drinks and playing some poker. So how have you changed your game as we've shifted towards GTO thinking at the highest stakes? And then also, how do you help your students in navigating those difficult waters in playing poker themselves?
So I think you want to develop a strategy that you can implement that is close enough to a fundamentally sound strategy, because no one's playing like perfect GTO at all.
Right.
But I teach my students to figure out how to play a rough approximation. And it's not going to be perfect. And if you run it against the solver, you're going to get crushed, because if you run any non-perfect GTO strategy against the solver, you're going to get crushed. But it's pretty close to it. And you can estimate that at the table based on, do you have the range advantage? Do you have the nut advantage? Are you in position? Are you out of position? Also, do you have a premium made hand or a draw? Those usually want to be bet. Do you have a marginal made hand or garbage? Those often don't want to be bet, depending on if you have the range advantage or not. And it's almost like a flow chart where you go through, like, do you have range advantage? Yes. Okay, go this way.
Right, yeah.
Do you have nut advantage? Okay, go this way. And you end up with a pretty reasonable strategy. So once you know how to play a pretty reasonable strategy where you're getting the best or the second best answer the majority of the time, now it becomes a question of, what are my opponents doing incorrect, right? So if your opponents are, let's say, just folding too much to continuation bets, you just continuation bet all the time because they fold too much, right?
Right.
So you want to look for spots where people screw up. And the tough thing about online poker especially is very often you won't know what your opponents are doing wrong, but you know they're doing something wrong. So in that case, you usually either need to be exploiting the player pool in general, or you need to just be playing as close to GTO as you can. So that's what you do online. In live poker, though, very often you'll just be very aware, like, okay, this guy checked the flop and he is done with it because now he's watching sports on TV. So we get to win this pot every time. Or the guy checked and he's like in the zone, ready to play this hand. Like, okay, not bluffing here all that often. And that will allow you to make like really, really big adjustments on the fly, not even based on a big sample of hands, but based on physical mannerisms and just like what it looks like the guy's doing. Right. Again, that doesn't happen in the high stakes so much, but in the lower stakes games or in soft, small buy-in tournaments, that comes up all the time.
Yeah, it seems like the information is more reliable with live poker, which I haven't played a lot of recently, but it seems you can be more specific with opponents. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes you just know. I mean, if you play a lot of live poker over the course of your career, you'll inevitably just start seeing the same mannerisms over and over among most people. Now, some people will do the opposite, or some people won't have any mannerisms, and that's not so useful. But sometimes you just know. I was talking to Phil Hellmuth a long time ago, and he said something to the effect of, after a while, if you don't know what your opponents are doing just by looking, you're probably not paying attention, you're not doing it right. And I realized, you know what, I'm going to start trying to listen to these reads, because sometimes, like, I could just tell the guy had a good hand, but I have the most obvious bluff candidate, so I just did it. Yeah. And then I lost when he called, right? He's like, yeah, don't bluff there. Or, yeah, make hero calls whenever it's clear the guy's bluffing with every hero call hand you have. And I started doing that and started having better results. Go figure. So pay attention in live poker to what people are doing, and you'll start seeing patterns that come up over and over again, and that will allow you to adjust very, very far away from the fundamentally sound strategy to maximally exploit your opponents.
I wonder what that stuff is, because I've had the same feeling where you look at someone and you just know, it's like I don't know if it's micro expressions in their face, or maybe we're just all biased and like, you know, we're making up a story after the fact. I don't think so though. Like sometimes you can just tell when someone's bluffing and you can do some crazy things.
Well, so what you can do is you can keep track of it, right? Now you're not going to be like, if you play a lot of live poker, you may make, I don't know, 1 or 2 big hero calls a day in spots where you would not otherwise make it based on some sort of tell. And so realize you're usually getting pot odds in these situations, right? Because you only need to be good, let's say 33% of the time or 40% of the time. But if you see you're right like 50% of the time in these spots, you're just crushing it. And if you get a sample of, 100 of these and you're getting 50% right, just, okay, trust these reads and trust them. Still keep track of them, but trust them. And then when you're bluffing, realize when you're bluffing, whatever it is, you need to win, let's say 50% of the time when you're potting it. If you're winning these like 70% of the time, you're just printing money. Right. So do it, but keep track. A lot of people don't keep track of live poker. They'll use stuff like Hold'em Manager for online, but they will not use anything for live, and they're just like purely guessing.
What are your tips?
Now I realize PartyPoker turned off some of those, which makes it a little bit more difficult, but they still have My Game that'll keep track of some relevant stats for you. And stats are important. And just because it's not very easily available for you in live poker doesn't mean you should completely ignore it.
So what would be your approach if I would transport you into a $1, $2 cash game grinder? Let's say you are, 20-year-old Jonathan Little. You love poker. You got $10,000. You're a 1-2 grinder. Like, what's your approach day to day of playing poker in that scenario?
It depends on what I have going on in my life. That's almost always question number one for people. If I'm a young person, I don't have a family I want to live near or anything like that, I would go find a new casino that just opened where poker is kind of new to that location. I think like Boston, for example, had a casino open there recently. That's a big metropolitan area, and they didn't have casinos there. I mean, they had casinos kind of close to there, but none actually in the city. So those games are inevitably going to be soft for a little bit of time, 6 months to a year most likely. So I would go there, and I would park my butt in a chair, and I would sit there 12 hours a day, every day, and I would grind hard. And I would make my 20 or 30 bucks an hour playing 1-2. Yeah. And then I'd move up as soon as I got any sort of decent bankroll to play 2-5. And once you get a decent bankroll to play 2-5, if you play 40 hours a week, you make about $100,000 a year. I mean, I have students who, I made a cash game course at pokercoaching.com about 9 months ago now. Some of my students were like break-even cash game players. They were not good. They found me. They were not good at poker. They signed up for my cash game course. And now many of them are winning 50 bucks an hour playing 2-5 in places like this, like in Florida, the Hard Rock, just grinding it out there, right? Making their 50 bucks an hour. And they went from making no money at poker to now making $100,000 a year from poker just by learning the fundamentals and then applying them and adjusting from them accordingly. So if you are good and you have a decent win rate, I would just go there and I'd play a ton. I mean, that really is the answer. Play a ton and then also study a ton. And yeah, you're going to be devoting a lot of your life to it, but that's okay. I mean, that's what I did a long time ago. When I was 18, I had not a whole lot going on. I mean, I was going to college, but I quickly quit that when I was making like $30,000 a month playing sit and goes on Party Poker. Right. So I played sit and goes all day, every day, literally 12 hours a day. I would play 12 hours a day. I'd study about 4 hours a day, and I'd go to bed. I did that every day for 3 years, and I made a bunch of money. But I didn't really have a good social life or family life or anything like that, and that was lacking. And I would not necessarily recommend that path to many people. But at the same time, if you talk to a lot of the people who are at the top of poker, very often they had that period in their life where they really did just completely devote their life to it. Right. Absolutely. But I mean, that's not what I'm doing anymore, right? Now I have a wife and 2 kids, and I have a bunch of students, and I write books, and it's a different life. And I've found that I'm way more happier when you change it up and you do way more than just sit and play poker all day, every day.
How did you transition from that poker grinder life, online, like obsessed with it? It's for me, it was my opportunity to like make some money. Like it was so exciting to me, and I really wanted that. So how do you transition from being in that bubble to like incorporating with the rest of the world? Like you live in a place where you can't play online poker on Party Poker right now. Which
I was going to tell you that the government made it easy for me.
Yeah, right. Okay.
They basically said, okay, you can't do this anymore. Yeah. So thanks to the U.S. government for forcing me to not do that anymore. But even before then, I started playing more live poker. I made a point to play more live poker because the buy-ins online were kind of capped, right? Like you could not play higher than like I think the biggest sit and goes in were $2,000, give or take, which is fine, you know, not tiny stakes at all, but you couldn't play $10,000 buy-in live tournaments against obviously bad players, right?
Right.
Like everyone in the high stakes sit and goes back then were really good. And there was just like a minimal edge. Whereas I wanted to try something different. I wanted to try to get on TV, win World Poker Tour titles and whatnot. And that sort of forces you to get up and leave your house and go do things. And you meet people and you start going out with those people and you make friends and you have a good time. So you mix it up. But I was never really the person who's just like grinding online all day, every day. Once I started playing more live poker when I turned 21. That said, I suppose I did have like what I would do is I would be home a lot and I would just grind really hard. And then when I travel, I wouldn't grind much at all. I mean, it's like kind of like what I do now. When I'm home, I'm grinding hard, writing books and teaching my students and whatnot, making YouTube content and stuff. And when I'm away now, I'm grinding a ton because when I'm away from home, that is my purely poker playing time. So I try to put in 16 hours a day every day because I want to and I like it, right?
Right.
And then I come home and I'm ready to put in time for all my students because I like it. And I think mixing it up is very, very important. We discussed this earlier. Yeah, you want to mix it up, and that way you're usually way more passionate about the things that you're doing as opposed to if you're burnt out doing that.
Right. And when was the like when did you know in your poker life that like, hey, I might want to like coach and teach and like share this with people? Like what was there a transition in your mind from just Jonathan Little Poker Pro to also poker coach and an author and video maker?
There was really not much of a transition. I certainly would not be where I am today without the help of many, many other great poker players who are better than me who helped me back in the day. Back when I was posting on the forums, like I wasn't a great player, but people helped me, and they, for no real reason, right? Like I wasn't making them money or anything, right? They just wanted to help other people and talk about poker. And I mean, maybe they were selfishly trying to look for other good people to talk with, but they helped me for no obvious reason. And I realized very quickly that it's nice to help people and find like-minded people who want to use poker to better their life. And so I found that helping others is way more fun than helping yourself, really. It sounds kind of crazy to think because a lot of people think poker is a game all about taking. But if you look at a lot of the best poker players, a lot of them have groups of peers who they talk about poker with. And, well, how do you get new peers to come into your group? Well, sometimes you have to teach them yourself. Right. And you have to get them thinking outside the box and about things, and they're going to inevitably teach you stuff. And so why not help other people, you know?
Right.
I mean, I get the idea that you don't want to make the game tougher, but at the same time, if my students want to come play with me in the high stakes games, they're more than welcome to.
Right. Absolutely. I always view that as a prisoner's dilemma because you still hear that argument sometimes, but not much in this Twitch and YouTube day and age.
I mean, information wants to be free, and the internet spreads information like wildfire. So people are going to get information if they want to. So
it's going to get out there, yeah. I mean,
it's going to get out there, and if you can put it out there better than other people, and people like that, and you enjoy helping others, then give it a try.
Plus, I think, at least for me, it helps provide meaning in this game too. Like it adds another layer of why I enjoy it if I can help make other people's experience more fun. Like for me, I'm more focused on the entertainment side on Twitch, but even that makes it like a more meaningful pursuit. I don't know if you had the same feeling.
It certainly does. And I mean, I don't know if I necessarily think about it all that much in terms of like, oh, I'm only taking money if I just play poker. I don't think I've ever really had that thought process or felt bad about it because I realize I'm playing a game and I'm trying to beat them and they're trying to beat me. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, most people do not go to play poker thinking, all right, I'm going to take this money and give it to somebody.
Right.
They're trying to beat you. And if they're trying to beat you, you're allowed to go and try to beat them. There's nothing unethical about trying to beat your opponents who are trying to beat you within the framework of the game. And I've always liked playing games. Like, is there anything wrong with playing chess for a living? I mean, I don't think so. Is there anything wrong with playing any game for a living? I don't think so. So I never really had a moral dilemma there, but it's certainly nice to add value. And I could tell you, if you're burnt out with poker or you're not enjoying yourself or you feel kind of negative about it, try to figure out a way to help others. That can be in the form of like mentoring someone. Find someone who you want to help improve their skills and teach them, or start streaming on Twitch, start making YouTube content, start doing anything that you want really that helps others, and you're going to find that probably makes you feel good inside. And if you feel good inside, that helps with motivation, and that's good. It's good to be motivated.
Yes. I think you've got to be one of the best at motivation.
People always ask how I wake up every day and just work all day, every day for the students. And it's not even a thought process. It's I want to.
Right.
So if you want to, it's not work anymore. But there's certainly been periods in my life where I would be grinding poker all day, every day. And I certainly want to play.
Yeah. I was going to ask, when did you fall out of love of poker? Were there periods where you just didn't like it?
I don't know if I ever actually completely fall out of love with it, but there have been a few summers where I just had no good results. And when you play a bunch of live poker tournaments and you show up and you play well and you get three starting stacks, and then you get it all in with a flip and you lose every day for 60 days. All right, well, this is no fun. And that starts to become a bit of a grind, but I don't think I've ever actively disliked it. You'll hear some people say they really dislike it. And that's because they become disgruntled. And usually it's because they are just playing for themselves. They're not playing to help others. And what helps some people is they will just resolve to give X amount of their winnings each year to some charity they really care about. And then you're not playing for yourself. Imagine you just know you're going to give away 10% of the money you win each year to a charity that you really love. Maybe you don't punt off those stacks here and there, or maybe you study a little bit more because you're not doing it for you anymore. You're doing it for others.
Right.
So find a way to give back, and I think it's way easier to stay motivated. But yeah, I don't really have a problem with burnout. I'm a pretty good grinder. I can sit there and play all day every day without a problem.
Well, it seems like the shifting gears helps as well. That certainly has helped me, where you when you may feel a little bit grindy, you can switch it up. How does poker change when you become a husband and a father?
So one thing I hear a lot of people talking about is how, I do not care at all if I bust a tournament, because I realize there's another one coming up. But whenever you do have a family, your next tournament may not be for another month and a half, right? And so you don't necessarily want to be losing that tournament. And you have to be careful to not let that mindset creep in, because say you have an obvious bluff spot, you decide to just not take it, because if you bluff and lose, well, you don't get to play again for a month.
Right.
That's it's an interesting feeling, but I feel like it really hasn't affected me because I just don't care. But a lot of people do care a lot about their tournament life, or about losing the tournament. And none of that really matters to me, I guess. My wife doesn't ask me about poker, really. She'd rather I win than not win, but it's not like she's giving me crap for losing or anything. You hear some people saying, oh, if I lose, then my wife's mad at me. But my wife doesn't care, because she understands math. And so I don't know. I think I'm in an abnormal scenario where not a whole lot's changed, just besides I'm not putting in the volume I used to. If anything, I'm just studying way more than I used to, which is good. I feel like I'm a million times better at poker today than I was even 2 or 3 years ago. And that's good. I really haven't put in a ton of volume over the last 2 years, but I've had pretty good results despite that. So it makes me happy.
Right.
Makes me want to get in there and grind more is what it makes me want to do.
Yeah, that's great. So I saw recently Rob Young put out a tweet that he was speaking with you and talking about how you guys were speaking about newer players or recreational players and how you could help them in the game. So I was just curious as to how you guys were introduced and sort of what things you were talking about.
I don't know how we were introduced, but I remember messaging Rob a few times saying, I like what you're doing at Party Poker. If I can ever help in any way, let me know. And I send out that message to a lot of people who I think are doing great work. And eventually he got back to me, and we talked about game theory optimal strategies for a while, because I just had that book, Modern Poker Theory, come out with Michael Acevedo. And he was in New York. We had coffee. We talked about GTO stuff. He showed me some stuff they were working on Party Poker, and it's good. We became friends, basically. And I was in Nottingham recently for the Party Poker UK, and I knew he was working to try to figure out a way to make the playing field more level, right? They've been doing a lot of that work on Party Poker recently. And he asked my opinions on some things and asked if I would be willing to work with him to try to teach the recreational players to not get crushed.
Right.
And so, yeah, I'm willing to help the recreational players not get crushed, working with someone who I respect in the community.
Right. So where, I wanted to ask you a little bit. I wanted to ask you a little bit about some of the industry stuff, actually, and that's one of them, which is, where do you think online poker has to go to continue to be sustainable? Like if we're talking 5 years, 10 years out, what are the sort of changes you think we need to make as an industry to be successful over the long term?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, that's a tough question. I think cash games are in a bit of a mess. I mean, the other day, Rob tried to introduce a different structure to the cash games for the fast tables. Yeah. And I think it was something to the effect that we're going to play 200 big blinds deep, but we're going to play with an ante now. And like all the regs just sat out and boycotted.
Small blind, they don't want to change the game. They were both small blinds, I think. It was blind was like 1-1 or 2-2. I remember.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
But they were playing 200 big blinds deep, I think.
Yeah.
Instead of 100. So the game was slightly different. Basically, instead of it being 1-2, it was 1-1 with 1 in the pot.
Yeah.
And for regs, that actually is kind of bad because they've studied a ton exactly 1-2 with no ante. That structure. And so they don't know how to play as well anymore in that game. So now they have to learn again. And I get it that the regs don't want to learn again because they already spent the last 5 years learning that one specific game. But at the same time, the way you make the game sustainable is to take a little bit of the edge away from the strong players. So it's tough. I mean, I think, well, I know. I told Rob, what you should probably consider doing is just getting rid of all the rake. He's like, I don't know if we can get rid of all the rake. I'm like, do it for 6 months, see what happens.
Right.
And I don't know if they can do that because I know they make money from the rake, right? They need to make money to keep the lights on. But like, if I was running a poker site and I didn't care about money, which I think in today's age, if you want to take over market share from, the biggest site, you need to probably be willing to make some sacrifices to get that to happen. And Party Poker is, right? They have these leaderboards, which are basically rakeback, right?
Yeah.
In various forms for the regs. And I think that kind of thing is good. But I know if someone said, we're not going to have any rake on our site for the next 6 months, well, probably going to go play there. Right? And you could even show, look, if you're a reg here, you're paying $10,000 in rake a month, and now you're just not going to be paying that $10,000 in rake a month. That said, that would be a pretty strong thing to do. And,
it's an extreme. Yeah.
I'm not sure shareholders would appreciate that. But so anyway, getting rid of the rake would be a good thing. Or, getting rid of the pros would be a good thing. Unfortunately, as bad as that sounds, that's how you make the game sustainable because you have to ask, where's the money going, right? Whenever people are playing on a poker site, the money either goes to the casino or it goes to the good players. One of the two. So how do you make the losing players, where the money comes from, not lose as much? Well, either the pros have to win less or the casino has to win less.
Right.
So if I was the casino, I would take a really, really long-term look at this and say we need to make a little bit less money immediately in order to keep this game sustainable. Because, I mean, the pros aren't just going to all of a sudden get worse, right? You can't make them get worse. And if you do make them get worse, then you're just killing the edge of the game for everybody, probably.
Right.
Like, I mean, you can have like super high variance games, but then nobody wins and then nobody will play.
Yeah. And there's something
there's definitely value in poker
being
being viewed as a game where people can win and change their life. And if that goes away, then this is going to be like another casino game that kind of dies and only or mostly degenerates play.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I think without it, poker isn't itself. Like, it isn't the reason that all the people that currently play play. So,
well, I mean, the casino operators have to ask, do they care if we play? Maybe they do, maybe they don't. Maybe they just want it to be another casino game.
Yeah.
Which, sucks for us. But it's tough because I'm not like only thinking about it from my point of view. I'm always thinking about it from everyone's point of view. Like, how did the recreational players view this? Well, it's a bad experience to put your money in, play 10 hands and get stacked every time because you're bad. Okay, you need to figure out a way to fix that. It's also not, it's tough because somebody has to give something here. And the whole idea is losing players are losing too fast, so they're not going to give anything here. So it's either the pros or the site.
Right.
So figure out which one you want it to be and then make that happen.
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
It's a rough topic.
It is. It's really hard. You don't win any friends talking about it, but I appreciate you being forthcoming.
Well, some sites are taking the side of, well, screw the pros, and some sites are taking the side of, we're going to try to make this a long-term thing, and I'm happy that Party Poker is doing their best to make it a long-term thing.
Absolutely. We've seen that kind of move over into the live arena. So I wanted to ask you about some industry stuff. I've seen the Venetian recently held a tournament where they had a fixed prize pool of, I think it was 150,000 or something. So there was no rake, but the prize pool was static no matter how many people entered the tournament. So effectively the rake could be free or it could be 30% if enough people enter. So we've seen some interesting moves from live poker operators as well to be, I don't know, innovative in trying to make more money.
That's a nice word.
Yeah. So what do you think about the health of live poker and live poker rooms? And did you have any thoughts on the Venetian strategy there?
Well, so I think live poker is doing pretty great, and that's because the weaker players can't actually lose all that fast because there's just not enough volume for them to lose all that fast. You can lose really fast when you're playing online because you play twice as many hands at one table, and if you're playing 4 tables, now you're losing 8 times as fast. And if you lose all day, every day, and you're losing 8 times as fast as you do with live poker, that's not good. So that's the tough thing with online poker is just the game's really fast. I mean, maybe they could slow down the game. Maybe that's the answer. Make every card come out at half the speed and slow the game down. But again, that's bad for the pros, right? It's also bad for the casino because they don't rake as much then.
It's bad in the short term.
Anyway,
long term it might be good. I think you're onto something, but we'll keep going.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah.
So I think live poker's in a pretty good spot because the game is just way slower. So okay, that's that. What do I think of the structure of the Venetian tournament? I think what a lot of people don't realize if they don't come from other gaming arenas is that's actually the payout structure of a lot of other games. So I play a game called Magic the Gathering. Actually, I don't really play it anymore because they have a stupid payout structure. And the payout structure is this is a tournament with, let's say, a 100,000 guarantee, but it's only 100,000. And if we bring in 200K, we're paying out 100.
Right.
And if we bring in 20, we pay out 100. But they never bring in 20. They always bring in 200. So they always rate 50%. And people are happy to go there and pay it and play because they like playing. And Venetian may be targeting people who just like to go and play. Like the absolute wrecks who don't care about money or minimally care about money. It's important to realize there are various types of game players. So I have an article about this where you can Google Jonathan Little 3 types of game players. And basically they're the types of players who play for these social interactions. They know they're going to lose. They're going to lose some. Like they're not trying to lose, but they know they're going to lose and they're kind of realistic about it. I'm going to play this game. It's a fun hobby. And I'm going to lose some money doing it. And that is something like 90% of game players. Right. A lot of them. They play for fun. I mean, if you think about it, like how many world-class poker players are there? It's not a lot compared to all poker players in the world. Then you have players who like pushing the boundaries of games. These are players who just really love getting stories out of the game. They love making big folds and big calls and running huge bluffs. And they're playing kind of for the excitement, but also to see what's possible.
Right. And
then there are the players who just care about winning. And the players who just care about winning are the smallest group in basically all games. It may not actually be the case in, well, it's definitely still the case, but it's probably a bigger percentage of poker players than a lot of other games because poker's played for money, whereas most other games are played for fun for the most part. So anyway, Venetian may very clearly not be targeting the actual players who care about winning money. Okay, so is that okay? Maybe this tournament's not for you, right?
Right.
Maybe playing on these poker sites that have no games you can beat. Maybe that's not for you. And that just has to be okay. Companies are allowed to run the games as they see fit. I mean, I'm not going to play at Venetian. I can tell you that. I haven't played at Venetian since Sheldon was going off against online poker. So, I mean, I'm certainly not playing there. And they're not for me and I'm not for them. So that's okay.
Right.
But it is unfortunate that that is perhaps a data point for other casino operators to look at. And imagine these just become wildly successful where now they're raking 30% every time because maybe people just like playing there. Maybe that becomes a regular structure. And then the game very quickly dies because you're not going to beat 30% rake.
Right.
So that's the potential downside. But that actually is the structure of a lot of other games. And I don't think poker players quite recognize that. And you have to keep an open mind and you have to study more games than exactly the one you are playing. And you have to look at it from more than exactly the poker pro Jonathan Little's point of view or your name's point of view, because it's not all about you. You have to figure out where you fit into this whole thing and do your best to make it as good for you as you can.
I think it's a very measured approach. It's like very well-rounded. So I appreciate it. So World Series of Poker and COVID-19 coronavirus. I'm asking for a prediction here. Are you concerned at all about the virus that's going around? There's been a lot of discussion on poker Twitter. What's your take?
I don't have a take because I'm not a scientist.
It's fair enough. That's fair enough.
I mean, look, it's very important to realize that some things you know and some things you don't know, right? I know I'm not good at doing math on the fly when I'm streaming, so I try to not do it. And then when I do, I screw it up. I know I'm not a scientist or a doctor. So my opinion on this is completely irrelevant. And a lot of people, for some reason, especially in the poker community, think that if they know something, like how to play poker, that must mean they know how to do other things, like bet on sports or predict viruses or bet on cryptocurrencies. Yeah, right. Just because you know poker very well does not mean you know other things very well. Maybe you do. Maybe you could know both, but being good at one thing does not necessarily mean you're going to be good at the other thing. I don't know anything about viruses. Besides, I don't want to get it. I'm actually going to Vegas this weekend for a retreat with me and my employees that we do every 6 months or so. And my wife's like, "Do you want to go to Vegas? The virus popping up." And then one of my students actually has a comedy club out there, and he's like, "Well, the attendance is down here in Vegas a little bit because people are concerned about this virus. Maybe you just shouldn't come if it's actually like real concern." But what do I think? I think we're probably going to be okay because we have been for forever. If someone gets sick, it's probably not going to be me because I'm a young man in okay shape. That said, I'm probably going to die from it now. So good game. It was fun while it lasted.
I find it very interesting how you're superstitious when it comes to viruses, but you're so rational and well-rounded when it comes to poker.
No, I mean, like, I mean, in reality, I'm not the least bit concerned for my own livelihood. I would not like to go out there and get it and bring it back to my kids because the young people and the old people are going to be the ones who are dying more likely than the people my age. Presumably, I could be wrong about this. I'm not a virologist. Is that what they're called?
Yeah. We have a lot in poker. We have at least 50 virologists I've learned this week.
There's a whole lot of them, and they're very proud of it. And it seems like it's also based on politics. If you think one thing about politics, you think one thing about the virus. And if you think another thing about politics, you think the other thing about the virus, which is interesting.
It's funny how that works. It's almost like politics has to do with identity or something like that.
It's almost like that is the case. There's actually a, you know what Wait But Why is?
No.
Okay, there's a blog called Wait But Why, and you need to go there and read all of it. It's good. You'll like it. Everybody in poker will like it if they don't have identity problems. So go there and read about it. And there's a long post. It's like 10 parts long. Gosh, it's probably, I don't know, 100 pages long, maybe more. And it's the identity of, it's all about the humans. And it talks about like how religions probably formed and how any identity-based thing formed. Because if you have identity and you identify with other people, it will make you work with other people. And humans, it turns out, have a problem working with other humans because you're just not actually that connected with them. So you have to have stories that connect you to other humans. And stories can be, well, things like religion, things like politics, things like money, all sorts of stuff, right? Mm. And so, anyway, go read waitbutwhy.com. It's good.
Okay. So how about reentries? Just a quick thought on that, because I don't want to keep you too long here, Jonathan. We got about a couple more minutes. Reentries, just give me a hot take.
Well, whenever they started reentry tournaments about, 10 years ago now, I said that I think these are the worst things for the recreational players they could possibly. And I didn't think they were going to last very long at all. Turns out they became wildly popular, despite the fact that they're very bad for the recreational player. This goes back to the idea of, am I looking out for Jonathan Little, or am I looking out for the game of poker and the longevity of it? And if you are a profitable player, every time you play, you get your ROI at that point. So if you're a winning player, you want reentry. You want unlimited reentry. But that's really bad for the recreational players. So do I want to absolutely crush the recreational players? The answer is no. So I am very anti-reentry. I'll still go there and reenter. Because, I mean, look, if it's within the rules of the game, you should play within the rules of the game. And if they say I can reenter 17 times, I will if I need to, right?
Right.
Assuming I'm profitable on each entry, and that's where you have to be very good at assessing the tournament field, the blind level, the structure, et cetera, to see if you actually have a positive win rate and if it's worth risk to your bankroll. Because if you have a 2% ROI, well, maybe you don't want to be buying into it. But if you have 30% ROI, you should be firing in all day.
Right. How about privatization of cash games and tournaments? Because cash games, we've seen this at the highest stakes. where a lot of the biggest action has moved into private games, and it's moved down not from just the highest stakes, but to, you know, pretty normal games as well, at card rooms around the US, as well as in Canada some. But we've seen that sort of creep into tournaments as well recently. It seems to work really well with the Triton of having sort of a business person or someone successful from something other than poker invite a pro and play. But it's kind of the first of its kind to see Triton, to see the one drop become these private events. So are you at all concerned, and what do you think about privatization of poker tournaments?
I think it is another tough topic. You want to talk about tough topics?
I like it.
So listen, you have to ask, who is in charge here? That's really the question. Who is in charge of the game? And it turns out usually some business person is in charge of the game. And the business people can do whatever they want to some extent. So if they want the game to be private, the game's going to be private. Okay? So now we better learn to play within that framework if you want to be able to play the game. So you better not be a jerk. They better like you, right? And if they don't like you, you're not going to get to play. And maybe that means you have to splash around a bit more. You have to not wear your headphones and sunglasses, right? I used to wear headphones and sunglasses all the time when I was playing poker. And that was one of the biggest mistakes I could have made because I wasn't interacting with anyone and making friends. And since I got out of that shell, gosh, I don't know, 8-10 years ago now, I've made many, many great friends from poker just by being there, being nice and talking to people. And I've had more opportunities come my way than I could possibly imagine because I'm not sitting there taking the game to the utmost serious. I'm still paying attention and playing my best when I'm in hands and whatnot, but I mean, it sounds bad, but I mean, I'm giving up a little bit of EV in the form of maximum focus on exactly what's happening every single hand in exchange for infinitely more life EV in the form of happiness and making friends and bettering my life and the life of others just by having a good time. So, you need to be friendly at the poker table if you want to have any chance of significant success, I think. Maybe online is the exception. I mean, that's the thing is online players come from this world where you don't have to be nice to anyone. You know, you can be going off in the chat all you want if you feel like it. Right. And whenever you transition to live poker, it's a very, very different game. So clearly there's nothing that the players are going to be able to do to stop the games from becoming private, because it's obviously happening, and there are even some rules in some places where you can't have private games, yet they have private games. Call it private games, call them whatever you'd like. They're private games, right? And okay, fine. You can get around the rules. So now, how do we play within this framework? And the answer is you need to make friends with whoever's in charge of the games, and you need to make them want to put you in the games. But even then, that's tough. Like in New York City, they have these private games where they rake a lot, and if you win in these games, they'll either ban you immediately, or the person who runs the game will want to take half of your action or something like that. Right. It's like, you know, you're either going to lose or you're going to make the owner of the game money. Pick. Right. You know, you get to pick which one. So I don't play those games because it's stupid, right? I'm not going to go play a game where I may not get paid, where I'm not going to be invited back sometimes, where they're going to try to take half my action, et cetera, et cetera. It's just not worth it. So maybe it's not worth it if you have to jump through all those hoops if you don't want to be a personable human. A lot of people, they don't want to be personable. They don't want to talk to people. They just want to go and sit in their shell and grind. Well, maybe that's not the game we're playing anymore. And if that's not the game we're playing anymore, you sure better learn to adjust.
Very practical.
Or make your own casino. Make your own rules.
True. That's true. Yeah, that's another approach as well. Very practical. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how the poker world continues to evolve live online. If we're going to see it break out into smaller groups or if we continue to go big, I don't know. But I like your strategy to it. So I'll end on sort of just an overarching goals question. So I just want to know, for Jonathan Little, what are you working towards in your career and your life? Like what's motivating you forward in poker coaching, poker content, and poker playing?
I don't know. It's a weird question because I don't really think in terms of goals. I think more so in terms of I'm going to do great work and I'm going to make other people and have a better life through poker. And that's maybe that is the goal, but I don't really view that as a goal because it's an unachievable one, because you're never going to be done. And I'm okay with the idea that I'm never going to be finished. And that doesn't scare me because like I said, I'm a grinder and I'm happy to put in all the energy and all the money to help people enjoy their life more. And I'm fortunate to be in that spot where I can do that. And so what are the goals? Continuing getting in front of more people and helping them find my training content and my training site so that they can get better at poker and learn to enjoy their hobby way more. And if they learn to make money from the game, then maybe that will significantly change their life. In terms of playing poker, I mean, poker's a volume game to some extent, and I realize I'm not putting in volume at this point in time. And you're just not going to have great success. Someone asked me the other day, like, oh, what are the odds you win a bracelet this at the World Series? Well, you can do some math and figure it out, and it's not very good. I think if you grind like every no limit event, you're something like 1 in 7 each year to get a bracelet, roughly. And that's if you're good. If you're not good, you're like 1 in 15. So if I'm playing, one third of the events, now I'm 1 in 21 to get a bracelet. It's not so good. So it's kind of a silly goal to have because I can't actually do anything to change the odds beyond sacrifice other parts of my life, like hang out with my wife and kids, and I don't want to do that. So priorities at this point in life are not to play as much poker or even to be the absolute best poker player in the world anymore. The goals instead are to be as good as I can be given life and time constraints and run a good business. And that's what we're trying to do.
I think that answer is so insightful because I really could learn from it. I think the whole conversation has been useful for me because what my brain hears is like process, It seems like you're so enveloped in like the day-to-day and loving the day-to-day that the whole takes care of itself. And I find myself very on the other side, so I feel like I can learn a lot from that.
Why don't you love your day-to-day?
No, I do love the day-to-day, but my brain immediately wants to extrapolate the short term to like the long term. Like, okay, if this works, what does that mean for the next 2 months to the year? And how can we make small adjustments for big results? Whereas sometimes I lose the daily shuffle,
I will tell you that if you just do great work and you out hustle everyone else and you work harder and you put out better work than everyone and you help more people, good things will fall in your lap and life will be great. And if you don't do anything and you're sad and depressed all the time, well, you're gonna have a bad life.
Right.
So it's really up to you. You have to figure out, do you want great things in life or do you not? And are you willing to put in the effort to do it? And you're obviously willing to do it. You have a podcast, you have a Twitch stream, right? You have a YouTube channel, you have all sorts of stuff. And it's because you're out there doing good work that good things are happening to you, right? I mean, not everyone gets a party poker deal, and you have one, and that's because you were doing good work. And that's good. Good things are going to keep coming your way. Keep doing great work, and you're just on an upward trajectory.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Speaking of work, where can people find you? There's a lot of options, but feel free to list them because I've seen you on the gram recently. I've been seeing books. I've been seeing YouTube. So please give people options.
I actually have to keep a spreadsheet of everywhere I am because I don't remember it. So we have youtube.com/pokercoaching. I have all sorts of videos there. We've been making YouTube videos for, I don't know, last 6-7 years, something like that. I have a training site, pokercoaching.com. That is where the vast majority of my work is. And you can get a free trial to that. And you can actually sign up to it. And if you don't like it after a month, cancel and tell me you don't like it and I'll give you a refund. If I do not help you get better at poker, I do not deserve or want your money. So it's kind of like it's free to try. So get in there and try it. I'm on Twitter at Jonathan Little. I post lots of articles, videos, etc. there. I'm on Instagram at jcardshark. Should probably get Jonathan Little there, but I don't have it. At jcardshark. And that's good. YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and pokercoaching.com.
And the next book. When's the next book coming out? Do we have a release date?
Next book, Excelling at Tough No Limit Hold'em Games. It is a fantastic book. I learned a ton making it. At this point, I'm either making content that is specifically for me to help me get better. That's what this book was. Or I'm making content that was for like Jonathan Little 10 years ago.
Right.
Or 15 years ago, And so anyway, that book is for Jonathan Little today, and I learned a lot. That is going to be out probably in early June. And it'll be at the World Series of Poker almost certainly. I'll be there to sign copies or whatever you want to do.
Amazing.
So that'll be fun and good.
Thank you so much for taking the time today. I appreciate it. And we'll speak to you again soon.
No problem. Thanks for having me. Keep up the great work.
Big thanks to Jonathan Little for taking the time and speaking with me this week. I think you guys will agree he's very good for the game. I mean, it helps people in their poker journey. So very exciting. And check out some of his stuff out there. It's going to be helpful for your poker game. I guarantee it. Now, before I let you all go, we have our weekly competition and our hashtag JSPokerHero, where we put one of you watching or listening to the podcast into a big event on Party Poker, and we root for you to succeed and hopefully take down a big score. You're a representative of the podcast this week. So last week, Yana at Watson 10 won the competition for a $215 million ticket. She's yet to use her $215 million ticket, so we'll be railing her this week. Best of luck, Yana at Watson 110 on Twitter. This week's competition, we're going to do something a little bit different because it's going to be too late for when this comes out to get you your ticket in time to play this week's million. So it'll be for next week. The competition is going to be, what will the first place prize be in this week's Party Poker Million? Guess the dollar amount. The first place prize closest to is going to win a $215 Party Poker Million ticket. And if it's a tie, we'll do a random draw between the two of them. So that's the plan. Get your entries in on Twitter, hashtag JSPokerEuro, and best of luck in the competition. Thank you all so much for taking this time this week and listening/watching the podcast. I'm really enjoying doing this every week for you, and I hope you're enjoying listening/watching as well. That's going to be it for me this week. Until next week, we'll see you later.